is it recording? Yes, okay. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
And let me go quickly back. So I'll just go quickly back to, because I'm recording this now, 4,000 years, the Babylonians started mid-March. The Egyptians used the new year, as I said, they timed it with the annual flooding of the Nile. First day of the Chinese New Year, meanwhile, occurred with the second new moon after the winter solstice. And the Greeks celebrated the new year around the winter solstice. And as we said, the Babylonians had this multi-day festival where they basically to the gods to try and to encourage a good new year. And as I said, Romans celebrated on March 1st, and then Julius Caesar created the Julian calendar with honored with January 1st now being the new year, because that honored the god Janus, who looks both ways. So he represented new beginnings and the old and the new. And they made promises to each other. There was an exchange of gifts, attended parties, decorating homes, and things like that. So that's what went on then. Julian calendar fell out of favor. And it was interesting because, as I said, he just added 90 days in to make it more in keeping with the actual lunar calendar. He also established January 1st, but fell out of favor. So in medieval Europe, Christian leaders that temporarily replaced January 1st as the first of the year, with days carrying more religious significance. And as I said, a lot of the New Year celebrations, which revolved around the equinox, but also had religious and sacred celebrations, as December 25th, which was the anniversary of Jesus's birth, or March 25th. That was a big one. And that was in medieval Europe, Christian leaders chose that as a possible New Year's Day because it was a feast of the Annunciation. Anglo-Saxon England celebrated on the 25th. William the Conqueror attempted to make January 1st the New Year's, but eventually it went back to the 25th. So this all sort of came together in post-Middle Ages. Pope Gregory the 13th, created the Gregorian calendar. And that was loosely aligned with the Julian calendar, and that was in 1582. And they restored January 1st as the day, as New Year's Day. Now, unlike Julius Caesar, who added 90 days, Gregory took 10 days out of the calendar, and he also tweaked leap year, which is probably when the 29th started. They added that extra day every 4 years, and that's to keep everything in keeping with the lunar cycle. Sort of interesting. Most countries went along with that. They started doing it between 1616 and 1752, and Russia adopted the Gregorian calendar in 1918, interestingly, which was right after the start of the Russian Revolution. Any questions, comments? No, okay. Anything you find weird or different? So many religions and cultures still have alternative calendars or alternative or additional celebrations. And we talked about the Jewish calendar, Rosh Hashanah, the month of Tishri, which is anywhere from September 6th to October 6th. And that again is the fall equinox, and it comes around harvest time. So these things all had a significance going way back. The Muslim calendar, which is a 354-day-a-year calendar, starts the new year with the month of Muharram. And the Chinese calendar month begins the new year in late January, early February. So they're also a little bit different. And other Asian cultures still have New Year's at various times. The Tamil in India use the winter solstice. The Tibetans do February, which is close to the spring equinox. Thailand is March or April, again, the spring equinox. The Japanese do celebrate January 1st, but it's 1st through the 3rd. They have a 3-day celebration. And again, gifts and offerings are made to the gods in other religions and New Year celebrations. And they're basically how most cultures celebrate New Year's. Okay. All right, so talk about the foods. This is where I found it was sort of interesting, some of the traditions and what the foods represent. So of course, most cultures celebrate with champagne. That's pretty standard. And food traditions tend to correlate with foods thought to be associated with money, riches, prosperity, good luck, good health, and all these and similar kinds of things. So black-eyed peas and lentils are big ones because they actually look like coins, though I'm not sure about the black-eyed peas, but I definitely see it with the lentils. But a southern staple in this country that's eaten on New Year's is Hoppin' John, and it's made with black-eyed peas. It also has rice and pork. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Actually, this is a southern slave dish, especially in the South Carolina Low Country, and they think that probably created to celebrate New Year's, and since black-eyed peas are thought to be similar to coins, this is probably the only time of year they probably had a break, and so they had a chance to celebrate. And they often eat it with collards and cornbread, and it's thought to be from French word for dried peas, which is pronounced paupigeon, which to some might have sounded like Hoppin' John. They don't really know exactly where the name came from. As I said, it correlates back to black-eyed peas being the shape of coins. The other thing is, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, there is some symbolism of round fruits and round vegetables, because it's the circulation, it's the circle, it's the coming to the end of one circle and the beginning of another. So round fruits are sort of symbolic of the continuing cycle of life. Italians, and I don't know, Camille, if you do this in your family, but they have a dish called, I'm going to probably ruin the pronunciation, but catechino con lenticchie, I don't know, but it's sausage.
Lenticchie.
Lenticchia, okay.
Lenticchie, I think. Catechino con
lenticchia, okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys make that?
No.
It's just sausage. It basically is a bed. I couldn't find okay. It's probably more Italian, and it's couldn't find a public domain picture. So all these are public domain pictures. It's basically looks to be a bed of lentils with sliced sausages on top. Looks good to me. I mean, I like lentils and I like sausages. So anyway, so that's things that tend to represent coins. Now, more food traditions involving coins, and everybody has probably heard of king cake in Louisiana.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So this really is more of a Mardi Gras thing, but apparently they start making it and selling it and eating it the beginning at New Year's, and then just take it right through to Fat Tuesday and Mardi Gras. And again, it's ringed. It's a sweet ring because the year has come full circle. And it's topped with icing and sprinkles because things are sweet in the new year, because we want the new year to be sweet. And it usually has trinkets in it. And whoever, now we say king or queen, but whoever finds the trinket is the king for the day. And of course, now we're being more open-minded about these things. So it's king or queen for the day. Now in Greece, and that's not the greatest picture, it's called Vasilopita. It's basically the same thing, but it also has a coin baked into it, served on New Year's Day. And you can see that one is actually from 2020. It actually has, you see it has dried fruits and it has nuts and things like that on top of it. And in Armenia, which is very similar to the culture in Greece and Cyprus, though though somewhat different, they have a similar history called tarkats or tarchats, which also has walnuts or coins. So, okay. So then we get into fruit, which is thought to be representative of prosperity and good fortune. And I love the 12 grapes because it's one for each stroke of midnight. And they actually try and eat all 12 grapes in that minute. And apparently, if you don't, you might have bad luck. So I hope nobody chokes on them, but yeah, they try to eat all 12. So, and this tradition actually might have been borrowed from the French, which wouldn't surprise me. We also do that in Chile, which of course, is a Spanish, has a a country with a history of Spain. Now, in the Philippines, they adapted this to be round fruit. And it's interesting because they consider fruit to have 12, represent 12 positive ideas. It's prosperity, health, success, abundance, love, wealth, good luck, peace, safety, friendship, family, and happiness. All very worthy things. But so they have 12 fruits on their table, 12 round fruits like apples, plums, or grapes, or other kinds of round fruits. And they don't appear to try and eat them all or take a bite of them all, but they might actually have them cut up, and who knows, maybe they try and take bites of them all before the clock strikes midnight, but not unlike the grapes. Now in Scandinavia, and there are other things they do in Scandinavia, but they're big on eating 12 peas at midnight. And in Turkey, this it's probably the idea of prosperity and good fortune, but what they do is they stomp on a pomegranate and see how many seeds are going to go for this. Some of these things are really, I can see them happening. I don't know how, you know, the juice. My only thought was, oh my God, where does the juice go? It's going to stain everything. But anyway, they want to see how many seeds fly out, and the more seeds, the better your luck for the new year. So I thought that was sort of interesting. Okay, did I say here? Okay, I don't know. We're going to go that further on. Okay, so pigs are thought to be symbolic of prosperity and long life. And one of the things that bring good luck and progress, and because pigs root forward is what I read. And it's true, when they're rooting in the ground for food, they don't go back and forth, they go forward. And so that was one of the reasons that pigs took on significance in New Year's celebrations. And in Pennsylvania and Ohio, where there are a lot of Pennsylvania Dutch, they eat pork and sauerkraut. And the tradition is symbolic of riches, prosperity, and long life, of course. And interestingly, that's the cabbage, I believe. And interestingly, this is timed with the winter hog butchering and sauerkraut take place all at the same time. So which came first? But since pork and cabbage are representative of riches, prosperity, and long life, you know. And then I added back in Hoppin' John, because Hoppin' John, as you can see from the bowl, it does have pork in it. And in Cuba, they eat suckling pig, but I refuse to even look for a picture of suckling pig because as delicious as they are, they gross me out. I actually went to a Philippine restaurant once where they had a suckling pig, just split in half and laid out on the table. I just had to sit with my back to it. It was delicious, though, I will tell you. I don't know. And what?
I had that experience. It was in Spain, I think.
Yes.
You went to a restaurant where they had the suckling pig, and that was part of your meal.
Yeah, it was
gross.
I've been to two parties where they were roasting the whole pig.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it tastes
one
delicious.
In Kentucky, and the other was in Maspeth, Queens.
Oh, okay. Were they? Oh, the Germans. So yeah. Okay.
So one was a luau, and the other just a family get together before a wedding. You know.
Oh, all right.
Ugh.
All right.
So.
Yeah, right. And you know, Germans, as I said, they really like pigs, and this little marzipan pig.
Oh, I love marzipan.
Isn't that cute? I love marzipan. Who doesn't like marzipan? Well, I shouldn't say that because some people might not like almonds. But this is actually how it appears with the little 4-leaf clover. And yeah, that's probably realistic. That I looked up. I don't know if I looked up German marzipan pig, but when I was reading, I found out that this is their representation. They like the little pig with a little 4-leaf clover, and I'm all for that. Okay, so next we have, I know this is an unappetizing picture, but I think pickled herring tastes great. So in Scandinavia, Germany, and Poland, they eat pickled herring. Fish are symbols of fertility and long life. That I do know. And the silver color is thought to represent fortune, wealth, money, whatever. And it's a popular dish in New Year's dish. And of course, in this country, wherever you have a lot of Norwegians or people from Scandinavia, which is Minnesota, Wisconsin, and it said Iowa, which I was not aware of, they'll have fish on New Year's.
In Brooklyn.
Oh, in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
What?
Scandinavian community in Brooklyn.
Oh,
Norwegians.
oh,
Sure. I think Norwegians. Yeah.
yeah. So and Norwegians, it is, yeah.
Long ago, her mother was an immigrant from Norway and came to Brooklyn and then eventually Manhattan.
But in any event, what was I going to say? I don't remember. But wherever they have large Norwegian populations, and I thought back immediately, Camille, to Christmas Eve fish dinner.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the end of the year, and it as I said at one point, December 25th was the New Year celebration. So I'm just wondering, going back to medieval times or the Middle Ages, if that had any significance. Who knows?
That
And
was
we
7
talked-
fishes. Isn't that Italian? 7 fishes?
Yes. Camille is Italian. That's why I was asking her. So.
Yeah, but my mom made different kinds of fish dishes on Christmas Eve. But back in the day, it wasn't 7 fishes for the Italian Americans where I lived. You made the kind of fish you liked, cod, salad, stuffed.
Bacala, dried fish.
No, not sort of. My grandfather would have live eels in the bathtub. I was terrified.
Yeah. Ugh. They taste good though.
Oh my God, it was so good. But years later, I tried to buy, the eel, pieces of the eel, and do what he did, which was lightly bread it and cook it. But his was delicious. But yeah, and they made shrimp and clams, all kinds of stuff. But not necessarily 7,
But I'm still wondering if that isn't a throwback to when the celebration of New Year's was around the 25th, which was Jesus's birthday, and the whole idea of fish having fertility and long life, and maybe it was a celebration that went back that many years, 500-600 years.
And also no meat on the day before Christmas.
Oh, right.
You're not supposed to eat the meat.
Okay.
So I don't know, but we still do fish, or seafood on Christmas Eve. And generally it's a meatless meal for us, even if it's pizza, along with the fish, because, most of the kids certainly don't eat it. We did lobster this year and pizza. That was it, because it was actually just 2 of us this year.
Okay. Well, Barbara, did your family have any special New Year's or Christmas food?
No.
Okay. We didn't either. So
We didn't really pay attention to any kind of ethnic.
we didn't even, and I'm Jewish. At Rosh Hashanah, they make the honey balls, which Camille, when are the honey, what's that?
Christmas, my sister makes them strufely.
Truthfully, for when? What holiday?
Christmas.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the Jews use that at New Year's.
Oh, okay.
So that's an interesting, it's the same exact thing. It's the round balls with honey all over it.
Yeah, they usually make them. I mean, maybe some people do it at Easter too. You know what I mean? Generally, it's Christmas.
Well, it's honey and it's sweet, and
And I don't eat them. I don't like honey, so I don't eat.
I love honey, but anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what we do? I'll just say fast in my family, and I don't know that it's a general thing. We always had fennel on New Year's Day.
Oh,
I don't know
that's
why,
interesting.
but I've asked other people and they said no, they didn't do that. So
Maybe it was a regional thing. Where was your family from? What part of Italy?
Naples and just outside of Florence, Bello Sguardo. So now
I know all about Naples and pizza because I'm doing a kids program. It'll be on Facebook, by the way, on the history of pizza, which is, so Naples was, the modern pizza came from Naples. Might have come from Greece and Egypt before that, but modern pizza, I won't take on any Italians. Modern pizza comes from Naples.
yes.
Okay, so in Mexico, they do tamales. And that makes sense to me. The corn, of course, is I think symbolic of it's yellow. It's symbolic of wealth and money. But this is a very I've seen it done because Camille, as you know, my ex-husband is half Mexican American, and I've been down to San Antonio, Texas, and watched. It's a very labor-intensive preparation. Tastes wonderful, but it's a family thing. All the women gather together. and they take the masa and they make it into the paste, and then you have to lay out all these corn husks, and they put
Wow.
out lumps of masa, and then they put out the filling, and then they wrap them, and then they steam them, and they can make 2 or 3 dozen at a time, and it's
Wow.
it's labor intensive, and it's eaten all holiday season long. So it might start with Christmas, but definitely New Year's also. I mean, I love especially homemade tamales.
I never had. So
Oh no,
they look delicious.
yeah, you're better off going to a Mexican restaurant where they would make them fresh, because I mean, the ones you get in Trader Joe's, they're okay, but there's nothing like a fresh tamale. It's unbelievable. So now in Japan, you have these Toshi Koshi soba noodles, and Toshi Koshi actually means to climb or jump from the old year to the new. And noodles actually symbolize long, healthy life, and they date back that idea and the idea of noodles in general, which unfortunately, for the Italians, that came from China to Italy, but not unfortunately, but I'm just saying, to the 13th or 14th century, and where this might have, huh?
Marco Polo.
Marco Polo, right? I mean, he was Italian. And really, they were fed to the hungry populace by the wealthy lords on the last day of the year. So that's where the noodles at New Year's came from. But they have always symbolized long, healthy life. And the Koshi Koshi, I couldn't find if it was a special recipe. I'm assuming that it is, other than just plain soba noodles. But that's what they look. I mean, they don't look any different to me. And that was supposedly, those are Toshi Koshi, Toshi Koshi noodles. So what? Did I skip a page? Hold on. Oh, right. Okay. So then comes my favorite, which unfortunately I can't eat anymore because of my wheat thing, but cakes and sweets. And of course I brought the little marzipan pig back because I like the way it looks. It is a sweet. And most of these things are round. Even the pretzel is it's intertwined and round, but these are round, and they're ring shaped to show that the year has come full circle. And we talked about with the king cake and the vasilo pizza. So in Norway and Denmark, they have this thing called, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but kransekakke cake. Cakey, I don't know. You see what it says, and that's the thing all the way on the left. I mean, it's at least 18 layers of a sugar cookie. Like, can you imagine baking this?
No.
Of a sugar cookie like cake type thing, and it's held together with royal icing. Must be so sweet, but it sounds really good.
Very decorative.
What'd you say?
Very decorative.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. Can you see making it? All these things are so labor intensive. That's the thing that blows my mind. And I'm sure that in a lot of homes where they make these things from scratch, I'm sure you could buy them, that it becomes a family thing, which is another good thing about the holiday that, So that's Norwegian and Denmark, so Scandinavia. So now these next ones are interesting. Oil balls, which of course you could see are more like beignets. These are interesting because they go way back from primitive, maybe even now 1,000 years back. They're thought to coat the stomach, shield against a sword attack from a mythical goddess. So if she were to, this is really so gross and disgusting, but if she was to stab you with a sword, it would slide right through. And I'm thinking, okay, but maybe it's just to counteract the overindulgence. But in one article I read, it said, and also, they started the polar bear swim, and eating high fat carby food is going to it's going to warm your body up and sort of make it a little bit easier to recover. In fact, I think I once read that highly fatty foods thicken your blood, and I don't know. So they're thinking that maybe that's why they ate these, but in any event, they're supposedly delicious, and they're just like beignets. So those are delicious. And then you have the New Year's pretzel, which, by the way, in Germany is the first thing they eat once the clock strikes New Year's. And it's not the salty kind that we're used to. It's sweet with icing or nuts or seeds.
Interesting.
Yeah. And what did I make a special note here? Oh, at one point they were distributed to the poor for spiritual and literal sustenance. There was a time when they were sent, they were actually distributed, similar to the noodles that were given to the poor. And, you know, they're thinking the Hop and John might have come from New Year's Eve when the slaves were actually allowed to cook something or given food to eat. But, so I thought that was sort of interesting. I found that interesting. So now we come to something that is really, this was a very interesting bit of history. And it's probably the most consequential food celebration, a just consequential celebration in general on New Year's Day. And it's the January 1st is Haitian Independence Day. And the Haitian Independence, Declaration of Independence was declared, written on January 1st, 1804. And it ended a 13-year revolt against the French, which, you know, who knew? I mean, I don't know too much about Haitian history. And the other thing about it is that slavery was abolished in Haiti, and it was a slave rebellion. And it's the only successful slave revolt in history. And it's also, they became the first Black nation in the world when this happened. And they celebrate this by eating jumu soup or pumpkin soup. And the significance of that is probably the fact that African slaves, for some reason, were not allowed to eat pumpkin. And so they have now made the eating of this pumpkin soup representation of their independence, which I thought was sort of cool.
Wow.
You know. Okie dokie. All right, so other ways we celebrate New Year's Day. So Auld Lang Syne, which is an old Scottish folklore, means days gone by, which actually has been sung on New Year's Eve since the mid-19th century. Really came to, well, we're all of an age. So we all know we all remember Guy Lombardo. And he's the one. We're all three gray hair sitting here. Luckily, there are no youngsters. So, you know, we all remember, in fact, I used to babysit every Christmas Eve, every New Year's Eve, and that was like a big thing. You know, Guy Lombardo playing at first the Roosevelt Hotel and then the Waldorf Hotel, you know, Auld Lang Syne to usher in the New Year's, and everybody dressed in their fancy dresses and everything like that. And he pretty much, that continued on through 1975 and 1976, when I guess he retired because he passed away in 1977. So that, I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah, if you watch TV, they still play that at New Year's, Auld Lang Syne.
Yeah, with the saxophones.
Yeah. And then, of course, if they're in Times Square, they immediately follow with New York, New York. But, you know. So this ball drop, this was really sort of fun and interesting. So it turns out that the New York Times has had a New Year's Eve festival at One Times Square since 1904. It was a fireworks display. That's how it started. But in 1907, apparently they outlawed fireworks in the city, I guess. I mean, it wasn't outlawed in that particular location. So what was the guy's name? There was a metal worker named Joseph Starr, an immigrant metal worker named Joseph Starr, created the 700-pound ball that was 125 watt bulbs, and they hung it from a flagpole. And they dropped it from the flagpole. And that was in 1907. So that was the first ever Times Square ball drop. This particular ball, which I think is the most, I don't know if it was the most recent, but one that they dropped past New Year's was the 7th iteration. And it weighs, so it started out at 700 pounds. That ball weighs 12,000 pounds. It weighs 6 tons.
Wow.
You know, and it's got all these LED lights and this Waterford crystal. And yeah, but that's sort of interesting that this has been going on since the beginning of the 20th century. So the other thing that I found cute, and I do usually at about 11:45 on midnight, I'll turn on the shows, that there are imitation drops all over the country. Have you ever seen any of them anywhere?
No.
No.
The one you've got to catch, and you can actually Google it. I could not find, again, I couldn't find a public domain picture, is the red shoe drop in Key West. So they have this balcony from this really famous restaurant. They put a drag queen in the red shoe and they drop it. It's Key West. And you know, it's exuberant and it's fun and it always makes me laugh. I just think it's because they do that usually after the New Year's Eve ball drop. I forget which show does that, and they immediately go to Key West. And there are other knockoffs all over the country. I know there's one in Pennsylvania, in a town that supposedly is a dill pickle center of the country, or at least of the East Coast, and they drop a dill pickle. And I'm sure that if you looked it up, you know, they would have all these different things being dropped. So I thought that was cute and fun. So now we get into, actually, next to Colombia, South America, this is all about underwear, believe it or not. So in Colombia, they wear yellow underwear. It's symbolic of gold. And they also circle their house or their block with a suitcase in the hopes that they are sure that they're going to be able to, they're going to have a lot of travel over the next year. But in Mexico, Bolivia, and Brazil, it's a little bit different. It depends on what you want from the new year, is the color underwear you'll wear. So if you want love, you'll wear red underwear. If you want wealth, you'll wear the yellow underwear. And if you want peace, you can just wear the plain old white underwear. So I thought that was sort of cute. So in Denmark, they do a couple different things. They jump off a chair into the new year. And also, Argentina. I'm sorry, that should have been a separate item. This is an interesting one. Now, I don't know how either of you have been or seen the ritual where, you know, you have this big bonfire and you throw things into it that you want to let go of and you want to, you know, just get out of your life, or to let go of ideas like names, maybe of people that you don't want to hate anymore. You just want to let go of it. So in Argentina, what they do is they shred all their old documents. I assume it's the ones they can shred, and they throw them out the window to make like a cloud, so that it looks enough so that it looks like a cloud. And the idea is to get rid of the old and welcome in the new, so leaving the past behind. And I thought that was also a little bit interesting. So yeah, so the Danes jump off a chair to leap into a luck-filled new year. They also, this I found amusing, they save up old plates throughout the year, and then they smash plates on their neighbor's doorstop. So when you open your door in the morning, or maybe after New Year's Eve, the more broken plates you have at your doorstep, the better your luck. So for me, there's a little bit of pressure there, you know, because families are going around to other families, and what if, you know, they accidentally give too many broken plates to one and not another? I thought that was sort of amusing, but that's what they do. They go around and they break plates outside the door, and the more broken plates you get, the more luck you're going to have. On a little bit more serious note, the Buddhists in Japan ring 108 bells. And this supposedly, this is significant number is to banish human sin and bring good luck to all, which I sort of thought would not only, depending on the tone of the bell, could be very soothing if it's like more of like a gong kind of thing, and a nice idea, you know. And so, believe it or not, I'm not surprised to find out that the Father Time and the Baby New Year, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we used to see that all the time when we were kids and young teens and stuff. I always remember seeing pictures of that, some New Year's party being shown pictures of, with a guy walking around in a diaper looking ridiculous, and some guy dressed up as Father Time. But apparently that dates back to Greece, to ancient Greece, when the old man, of course, represented the year past, and the baby, I mean, no big surprise, represented the year to come. I don't see that. I don't think it happens too much anymore. I don't think I've seen that in a long time. So anybody else know of any other celebrations that they or their family do that are a little weird? I know once I was with a friend, and I think she was Dominican, and they throw water out the window. Don't know why. I don't remember why.
I worked with a Greek woman whom I'm still friends with. And she used to go back to Greece for the holidays because her mom and dad were there, and her dad is still there. But they would play cards. They'd stay up all New Year's Eve night and play cards. And she told me that's what they do there. I had never heard that.
No, neither have I. I wonder what the significance was. Maybe it's just a communal thing. Who knows?
I don't know, but apparently, I guess in her town, they do it.
Okay.
I've
We
also,
always listen to WQXR, and the classical countdown.
Right. That's. So I just want to take a moment because I realized all of a sudden today, oh, I didn't put the picture attributions under each picture. So I'm just going to pause because this will be on YouTube. And I just want to be sure that
sure.
I give, and it's most of them come from Wiki Commons. I just wanted to take a moment so that's there in case somebody comes looking for it. They can't say that I used their picture without attributing it to them.
Right.
All right, so we've talked about the beginning of New Year's, where there were, prayers to the deity for a good life, and I think I probably didn't wait. I probably missed pointing out that. Actually, I have it here. That in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, this is 5,000 years old. It's the Jewish calendar that I have that here. That yeah, on Rosh Hashanah, the Book of Life opens, and it emphasizes forgiveness and reconciliation. You can't refuse to forgive somebody, and you need to reconcile if people want you to. And so, if you look back on the practices, the New Year's resolutions, which are to resolve to continue good practices, change undesired behavior or traits, to accomplish a personal goal or otherwise improve your life. And it seems that even back 4,000 years ago, the promises to the deity were to accomplish sort of the same kinds of things. It wasn't quite as secular, it was more religious or more about survival, but the earliest celebrations were basically the same kind of thing, make my life better. Medieval knights actually took a vow to reaffirm commitment to chivalry, which of course was at that time a very highly thought of behavioral lifestyle. And they seem to pass from religious to cultural, about creating a better year to come. No one really knows when they became more secular or focused on health and self-improvement. But most historians agree that happened in the late 18th century. And, the late 18th century, you're sort of, leading into the Industrial Revolution. I think that was a period in history when maybe things were becoming more secular and people were losing some touch with the land and becoming more city bound, or with the Industrial Revolution, working in factories and stuff like that. That's just my sense. And, this was an interesting, I was reading more on resolutions in general, and somebody made the statement that they seem to change with the needs of society. And I would agree with that. I mean, in ancient civilizations, they needed a good harvest. And if you lived a good life, you would, luck would come to you and friendship would come to you and you'd have a good harvest and all that kind of stuff. And in modern times, it's not quite as straightforward. And somebody posited that with our society having so much surplus, which I disagree with, that people had surplus time, surplus energy, surplus money to be able to focus more on their personal well-being and going forward. And I don't, especially in this time of COVID, when there's so much food insecurity and, so much financial instability and people losing their jobs and, people losing their homes and people being possibly evicted, I'm sure those people are praying for some of the things that people prayed for thousands of years ago, just to have a roof over their head and for this to be a little bit better for them in the years to come. So, the idea hasn't really changed that much when you consider that resolutions are about wanting to live better, whether it's a better harvest or a healthier lifestyle, or just being able to get through the new year in one piece. So, I mean, we can talk about that a little, but, you know, I think that with maybe with the Industrial Revolution and the factory culture, it started to be about resolving to work harder, to earn more money, and things of that nature. And I want to give a few statistics that I pulled. This is interesting, and we're talking about excess and surplus and lack of excess and surplus. At the end of the Great Depression, only 25% of American adults had New Year's resolutions, which is interesting. But by 2020, 40% did. And certainly 2020, before COVID hit, things were a lot better than they were during the Depression. So it's interesting to me that since the Depression, that making New Year's resolutions has become more of a thing. So maybe it is true that as a society as a whole became wealthier, it became more likely that you would be making New Year's resolutions. But here's some other interesting stuff about resolutions themselves. So a study in 2014 said 35% of those who failed admitted they had unrealistic goals. Hold that thought. 3% said they didn't keep track of their progress, and 23% forgot all about their resolutions. And then some said they made too many, and hold that thought as well. Now, a 2007 study, which was done with men, but I think that this is more universal than that, found that it was people were more likely to succeed when goals are made in terms of small and measurable goals, like walking 5 minutes a day instead of jogging a mile, or losing a pound per week instead of losing, a whole lot of weight. So it's easier to make a more sustainable and realistic goal than, just a big overwhelming goal that, well, how do you attack that? How do you do that? How do you accomplish that? And last thing before we maybe talk a little bit about this is, if you want to, is consider mindfulness when you're considering your resolutions. And mindfulness to me means being present in the moment, being aware of how you're feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, what's happening at the moment that you make your resolutions, or you attempt to carry out a goal or something like that. I think we're too hard on ourselves, and you have to really examine at the moment what your barriers are, why maybe you're not as willing to achieve this goal, and give yourself a little bit of kindness to back off from it, so that you're not beating yourself up and considering yourself a failure. Those are some of my thoughts. And I know for me personally, I don't make New Year's resolutions. I all year long want to just live a healthier lifestyle. And so I'm constantly examining things I do and saying, well, maybe it'd be better if I eased off of this behavior. And one thing I always give as an example is that I am gluten sensitive. And so I don't eat any gluten, any grains at all. And it really took me 10 years to get to the point where I was 99.9% grain gluten-free. It wasn't an easy thing to do, and there were plenty of backstepping and stuff like that. But, so if we want to take a moment to talk about that, and thank you. And let me close this and bring us all back up. Anybody want to share? Yeah, no, pressure. Anybody want to talk about resolutions or stories?
I don't make any either. I would rather try to think all year round what I want to do to make my health better, or my lifestyle, or whatever it is that I want to accomplish. And I hear a lot from the media. They're always talking about, did you make resolutions? If so, why? Why not? And it seems like people are making fewer resolutions these days. And at least that's what I hear from the media.
It also can set you up for failure if you make this ridiculous. I mean, look, we're human, and the neural pathways are created over the decades. So you see a piece of chocolate cake and you want to eat it. And that, I mean, we know chocolate cake tastes good. Let's put it that way, right? And so that neural pathway is established. You see that thing. So
Yeah.
to change a neural pathway, it's very hard. You can do it,
Right.
but you're always going to know that that chocolate cake tastes good. You just have to
cut back on sugar, you know.
Right.
You know, I credit you for getting rid of gluten. I'm sure that was very, very hard.
It was hard, and sugar is another one. And what's happening, and I don't know about you two, but
Labels have tried not to buy things that have extra sugar, like
right,
butter and ketchup and all these stupid stuff.
Well, that I'm not as good as you with that. What happens
I'm
to
not
me?
good at it, but you know, I'm aware of it. Bread that has sugar put in it, you know.
Yeah. Well, also, the more processed foods you eat, the more you're going to have that problem. And the closer the food is to the actual
Right.
way it shows up, you know, it's grown or something like that. But
Eat seasonally.
yeah, for me, I don't feel good.
Can't do it this world.
I don't feel good. When I eat too much sugar the next day,
Oh, yeah.
I don't feel good. And it's taken a while for that neural pathway. Oh, if you eat that,
Yeah.
okay, you're
Well,
not going to feel good tomorrow.
I like the fruits and vegetables in season, like watermelon in the middle of winter. I said, where the heck has that come from? You know, and
Well, that too.
I grew up in Seattle, and
Oh, I love Seattle. My brother lives there.
The eastern part of the state is the big growing region
Yeah.
for melons.
Mhm.
I always imagined you'd wait for July and August and September for these wonderful melons, and now you get them all year round, and they're terrible.
And they don't always taste good because they ripen on the way to market.
Yeah.
And also sustainability, you have to figure where they come from. So Camille, you don't have to share.
Jersey corn. It's only
Yeah.
good at a certain time of year.
Yeah.
It's totally different when it's really fresh produce from a farm stand, and I just couldn't believe it. But on the other side of the coin, I mean, I don't make resolutions either, but having been in lockdown for almost a year,
I know.
I am.
It's hard.
You know, my habits are terrible. I have become addicted to potato chips.
You told me that, yeah.
I had lost about 18 pounds a couple of years ago, and now I've gained it all back. I'm pretty sure. I'm afraid to get on the scale. I do walk, but I know I'm bored. I do things around the house. Of course, I do my own cleaning and stuff, but
It's hard.
hoping that when we get back
When you get your vaccine, right?
of norm, well, just the world is normal.
Well, they're talking about hopefully things are going down and that they'll get things under control with this vaccine and they'll continue to go down and we can get back.
Who knows? But I wouldn't even begin to think about trying to, be totally better. I could be a little better. Then until like maybe I go back to work,
Right.
get out and see people, do things rather than just sit home and what do I have in the refrigerator? Where's that bag?
Well, let me interject. And this is, as I said, I'm not a clinical dietitian. I was a public health dietitian. I do know that the adrenals, when they're stressed, eating or wanting salty food tends to be related to the adrenal glands. And what gets a hit when we're stressed? The adrenal glands. So that could very well be. So I'm not just telling you that it might be your natural response to stress. Don't beat yourself up.
No, I'm not, but I know it's not. But I also try to eat vegetables and fruit.
That's it also.
And so I try to put the good stuff in. I do take vitamins and
Right.
and stuff. So, and I do walk. I haven't gone the last 2 days now, but I do walk.
Yeah, and that's. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Barbara.
Snow and ice outside. It's not a good time to walk.
Yeah, well, not now.
My husband just came back. That's a dedicated person.
And, we're going to be having a lot. I don't know what you guys are going to get on Long Island. Camille's on Long Island, but I know we're going to be getting precipitation, but it looks like it's always going to be mixed with rain. So it doesn't look like we're going to get a whole lot on the ground. There might be an inch now, and because the next week and a half, we're going to be getting a lot of precipitation. And I really wish it would be spread out over more than just February.
I mean, we haven't had this much snow in years.
No,
And
you're
this
right.
is the year, of course. I'm surprised it wasn't 2020, frankly, but 2021 is shaping right up there too.
Yeah. So
Hopefully better days are coming.
So the thing that I want to leave you guys with is you don't beat yourselves up, whatever. Just, you like the kids when I did the history of pizza, and I talk about pizza as being a potentially healthy food if you put good toppings on top of it. So you want the sausage or the pepperoni, put some onions and peppers and stuff like that. And I try and I end with, use it as a way to get your extra veggie serving in or something like that. The same thing is true, so that we're just about out of time. I want to let you know, Barbara and Camille, you're certainly welcome to join, that next month, I think I'm doing a screening of a movie called Gather, which is about food sovereignty on the Southwest Indian reservations. It's just going to be the screening, and then the following month, we're going to have the discussion. It is a fascinating movie. It is so interesting about how this government interacted with the native tribes and how it affected their infrastructure and their foodways. And, Native Americans have very high incidence of heart disease and diabetes and kidney disease because in a very short period of time, they went from eating their foods, the foods that they naturally took from the land, the buffalo and everything, eating processed foods and commodities foods. So this is talking about how they're taking back food sovereignty they're taking back the sovereignty control over their food. So I'm going to be filming, will be a link out to view that next month on the first Monday. And then the following, so let's say that's March. So in April, then we'll be following up with a discussion on that. And then in the future, I don't know, Barbara, I don't think you were at our history of cocktails, right?
No.
That was.
Wait a minute, I was, yeah.
Oh, okay, well, we might repeat that around julep time and have her maybe look at Southern cocktails a little bit and do that. Yeah, we had a great, Camille, that was just, and of course, I thought I pushed record, but I did not. And, so in fact, let me stop the recording right now because how do I stop there? I stop it. Okay. You want to stop?